Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 21st, and this is Nadex Morning Analysis. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me from Keep Trading Simple is Brian Caprice. We are going to talk about potential hotspots in the markets today, places where you might want to take a look for potential opportunity. Before we do that, I do need to share this quick disclaimer that trading involves risk. It may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk, and that this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We're doing this for your education purposes. So, with that, the hot spots that we're going to talk about today, it's all over the news that everyone seems to be talking about, is Netflix did come out with their earnings yesterday after the close. We are in earnings season. Netflix, of course, one of the FANG stocks, and it's impacting the Nasdaq index with Netflix down around 10%. It's around $50 a share that it's down. It is definitely having an impact on the Nasdaq 100. Oil also making a move, so we're going to take a look at oil, and I think we might wrap it up with a brief discussion on what's going on in inflation as well. So, Brian, you want to go ahead and kick us off with what we got going on?
So earnings season, that's like wedding season, but less dancing and less of those scallops with the bacon around them, right? That's what we're in here?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously that's big news. We've had some retracements over the last 2 days. We've kind of mentioned the same story, that we tend to see a strong Monday and then things reverse back again. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. I mean, we started off Monday, euro dollar was up pretty big, pound dollar, again, up pretty big. They're both in the red right now. Dollar yen is still down, and again, there's some industry-specific things that are affecting that one, but dollar Swiss is up, dollar CAD is up, Aussie dollar is down, again, showing all dollar strength coming back in the market, and then pound yen down pretty big, and we mentioned that as well, based off some of that news. Now, news thus far this morning, again, interestingly enough, we're seeing inflation, and again, this is kind of a weird inflation play today, but we're seeing CPI year over year, not as good as expected in the pound. In the Canadian economy, same thing, month over month, not as high as expected. So interesting to what we've seen, because everybody keeps talking about it rising. There's been some comments, and again, here's a comment that could not only be affecting the price of gold, and we can try to touch on this at the end, but this could also be affecting our overall stock indices as well. A supposed, and again, I always say this, who knows really, right? But a leading strategist is saying that we could see inflation hit 2, 3, or 4% by the middle of 2022. That's a little bit faster than I think what Powell originally talked about. He mentioned that we're looking for moderate inflation, more so than the 2%. Many people assume like 2.5% is what we'd be shooting for. And he said for an extended period of time, nobody has any clue what that actually means. But 3 or 4% is a little bit hotter than I think what he was trying to portray to us. And again, if it comes in 2022 like that, that's strong. You got to start. You're going to have to start thinking about, okay, well, what is the plan to start controlling it? Now, again, overall, and again, I'm going to jump into the indices chart in a second for the NQ, because while those things matter, interest rates matter more than kind of a temporary Netflix type thing. And again, Netflix is also associated with recovery. Here, and again, we would assume vaccines are helping. Right now, and again, this top right here is the worldly numbers. The weekly change right now from last week to this week, there are 12% more cases this week, and deaths are up 7%. So we are a couple months now into vaccines. I know today, I'm leaving here. I'm going for number 2. But again, we're not seeing kind of on a worldly case. We've had, 4 months now of vaccines available, 5 months in some cases. Not necessarily, and again, there's some alarming numbers out here. India up 62%, Germany, another huge 25%. There's small things like Poland, which is good. Italy down is great, but Turkey, again, another one over here. There's some numbers that are pretty alarming looking, over here as well. Pakistan is up, Japan is up 33%, another one of the very large industrial nations of the big. So there are some numbers in here that are not looking great. And again, that's leading to kind of an overhang. So Here's the NQ, and what we did is we marked off kind of a smaller time frame curve level, and we talked about prices coming down. And you can see right now on an hourly basis, this 13,722. I mean, we've smashed into it, pulled away, we've hit it again, we've pulled away again. So I mean, typically we say a level is good for about 3 to 4 hits.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of had a front run sitting right here that is something that we need to kind of. It needs to be mentioned. Right. And then we got the hit here. We got a hit here again, and there's a little bit of a bounce off it. So we're kind of getting to the stage now where you got to start be thinking like, yeah, I mean, this was a great intraday level. We've hit it a bunch of times. The retail trader hasn't reacted to it yet. COVID cases are up. Now we're talking about increased inflation. You got to wonder, is this, instead of being a buying area, is this going to be the new sell area? And I was trying to kind of dial it down and say, hey, listen, where is really the next area that I would be all over buying, at least on an hourly basis? I mean, we got the one level down here at 13,530, but it's not one of those levels that I'm like really kind of married to or in love with. I mean, at this point, I would be looking more for some type of a basing. If we get a basing in this 13,722 level, you guys know what I'm thinking. I mean, I won't even say it, but I'll just draw the pattern. You guys, yeah. To the downside. Funny enough, this cracks me up. I actually happened to find this strategy today. Someone that used my exact terminology. So there's somebody out there, a supposed expert that's been watching these broadcasts, because magically he just drew it. Instead, he said the same thing we did. I was like, hey, thanks for the credit. I appreciate it. So it's the secret is out. People are copying my strategies online. But again, in all seriousness, when we look back to where this kind of downfall could stop to, I mean, there's a small level kind of sitting in this level right here that we could look at. This one has kind of been pushed through, but really the last test is down here at 13,575. And if we have that much negativity, if we drop all the way down to that 578, where is it, 575? That's putting us 125 points to the downside. So I'm thinking right now I'd be looking for some stabilization. Look to see if we can get a defined level of risk. And again, I'm just going to draw this. I don't know where it's going to be yet. But I mean, if we get a defined level of risk right there, that could set us up for some type of a short position to the downside, because we don't really have a lot of great buying until at least down to that, that 13,570.
So yeah, this is just on the Nadex platform. What you could be looking at, and I do like how we can customize our charts a little bit better now. If you haven't played around with this, you can actually hide the different strike levels or see them all. But I kind of like this where it'll only be the strike that I click on, so you can unclutter a lot of your charts if you prefer. But what Brian's looking at here, I'm actually going to slide this down a little bit. I mean, it's it's not saying, hey, this thing's got to go lower, but looking for that if there were, Brian, definitely an if this then that trader, if it were to break through or build some stabilization. Actually, I think I have this on the chart a little wrong. I think it's right around here.
You have crude oil. I see crude oil right now. You have up.
Oh, you know what?
That would be why it doesn't look right.
Well, you know what? You're looking at crude oil. And meanwhile, what I'm playing with is the NASDAQ.
No, I'm looking at the NASDAQ. You're looking at crude.
No, actually, I was sharing crude. I'm playing with NAS. So here.
We'll go to that one next, Todd.
Yeah. It's funny is this is what I was actually looking at. I was looking at the.
You were looking at it but sharing the other one.
I'm looking at this and sharing the wrong one.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you for at least letting me know. So apologize. What you weren't able to see me doing before, though, if you wanted to, you can hide. This is what I was doing, showing you how you can declutter your charts a bit and just choose which strikes that you want, the strike that you want to see. So it cleans up your chart. Anyhow, the if this then that scenario, again, we've seen it hit this level, so many times. And it definitely has been, and you could see it was just a little earlier a temporary support, and we're now seeing in this past 15 minutes a little bit of a bounce. But if you see some basing, and look, it's trying to punch a little higher, but you see some basing in here, and it comes back up, touches this again, and starts going lower, you'll see that Harry Potter formation. But again, we don't know. We got to wait until the retail trader comes in. These are the binary options. Definitely a way to potentially play this either from the long or the short side. Apologize for sharing the wrong screen. You know what? We mentioned oil. Let's talk about oil.
Yep, let's talk about oil. That sounds like a good idea.
There
All
we
right,
go.
so oil's a pretty interesting chart. So you guys know it's Wednesday. It's oil inventory report day. The API number came in actually showing a little bit of a build-in surplus. Now the API and the EIA numbers are not exactly the same. Again, there was more of a bit surprise. Again, I don't think people expected that much kind of a build, but you never know. Remember, this is this is the tail end of that kind of spring break time frame. So it's a great guess, but at the end of the day, they don't really know. Remember, there's a small prime with darts picking the forecast on a lot of these cases. Right now, again, we're expected. Last time it was minus 5.9 million barrels. It's expected to come in at minus 3.7 million barrels. When you look at that, you say, hey, listen, it's a down draw again. It's less than before, but it's a down draw. Price should go up, right? Well, here's kind of where we're standing with oil. You guys can see it, but I want to start 2 weeks ago, or actually last week on the 14th. If you remember last week, I was like, hey, listen, this is the first time in like 7 or 8 weeks for the oil inventory report, there was not really a lot of movement in the European session. Okay. Yeah, as you can see, we hit the 9:30 time frame and the oil, it was like rocket ship, light everything, booster rockets. I mean, it was just crazy going up, but we saw no movement. And this was not what we've seen, I'd probably say, over the last 3-4 months at this point. Well, guess what we happened today? It's not this. It's back to the original.
Boom.
What we've seen. Now, yesterday, if you remember during the session, I mentioned, I marked off this level. I said we had a prior level here. We expected it to break. We had our 4 hits, and it did. And it ended up coming back and pulling back right at 12. And we said, hey, we're here now. Could we get this short, right? We were waiting for it to pull all the way down. And what we're looking for was not really kind of a pullback. We were looking for the straight drawdown to the European session, and then we were looking to take it long. Well, it gave us the 1 to 3, came back up, and guess what? It used that same level at the European session. So remember, when are the best time to find opportunities? Session opens, news, and reversal hour, right? Well, guess what? We were talking about a big push off of a lower level. It ended up pulling back and using the same level, and this was a heck of a drop. From the European session until now, we're talking about $1.60 worth of movement. Now, it is close, and it is flirting with this 60.93 level. We'll see where it's able to come back in again. It's almost like, the European session knows what the data is going to be, right, Todd? I mean, before it even came out. So, yeah, we were talking about major movement from the European Open, and we got the major movement from European Open. It just ended up using it again. This is why I'm an if this, then that trader. 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I couldn't predict that it would still be using, and again, going back up and using this tested level. We assumed that it would just continue to kind of fall over it and then just continue to roll back down, and we wanted it down here expecting a move. Again, you got to be fluid in your trading. So right now, I think 60.93 is the level we look at. Just because of the reaction, this was the start at the European Open. I think 62.50 is also something we need to kind of keep our eyes on. Could it go lower? Sure, it could. This is going to get a little bit grindy. It'll kind of be kind of halty. Am I expecting a rocket like it was last week? No, because most of the movement has already happened. I mean, $1.60 in is a lot. That's quite a lot of movement in a very short period of time. So at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if we had some type of a parabolic move or parabolic retracement back up again. Is it going to work in one day? Probably not one day, but it could be one of those factors. Right. Now, I will say, and again, here's the one caveat, the asterisk to the whole thing. Remember, with these COVID numbers in here as well, this is also lowering overall demand for oil on a kind of a global spectrum. So it's not just a U.S.-based inventory report. It's not just here. It's also going to be, depending on how they kind of sway kind of anything with COVID-based today as well.
And that is actually really rather important. So we got 2 things. One, if anyone missed that, 10:30 Eastern this morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern this morning, U.S. oil inventory reports. So that's 9:30 Central. You might want to be watching crude oil and watching the news to see how those inventory reports come out. Now, if you need help identifying what those numbers are, if you give me 1 second, Daily FX, one of our sister company, does have an economic calendar, and I'm going to share this link right now, and it tells you when these reports come out. It tells you what the previous number was. If there's a forecast, it tells you what the forecast is. Here we go. I wanted to share this. So please, this is a great resource, a great link. the economic calendar on Daily FX, you'll see that there's the 1030 U.S. oil inventory. I think it's actually called something else. It's actually called the Cushing crude oil stocks change, meaning stocks as in storage. So definitely be paying attention to that. But again, alongside with the supply, right? Because oil is definitely a supply demand product. There's the demand side of it as well. So you got to balance both those out. But there could be some activity in oil later this morning. It's definitely something to look at, keep your eye on. I also put in this chat earlier, if you're totally unfamiliar with trading oil or gold and want some basics around trading those markets, on May 4th, we're going to be doing a boot camp on specifically the oil and gold markets, how to trade them in binary options, call spreads, knockouts. Brian's got a great presentation around trading around economic events, specifically like the one on ones that we have this morning. And then I've got a colleague over on the Daily FX side who's going to be speaking about the fundamentals of oil and gold markets, other things that you can be looking at and what else you need to make yourself aware of. So again, and we'll be recording the entire day too. So if you register, you'll quickly get the recordings later if you register for it. So with that, we were touching on gold a little bit. Brian, do you want to just kind of
we'll take this as like a parting shot. It's 9:01, so I want to not keep people here too long. But again, mentioning inflation, since that report came out, or that kind of article came out on inflation, this is a 30-minute chart, but you can kind of see since really about 6 o'clock this morning, gold has also been kind of rallying up in the pre-market. It's right where we were kind of at the European Open, kind of shot it down when they got all that bad inflation, the CPI data, and then that report came out about 3-4%, and it kind of jumped. I will still say that I think the 1790 and 1761 are important. And as we mentioned with True Theme, again, silver is kind of moving twice as fast. Instead of being up 0.4, it's up 1% already this morning. But again, it's coming back into this level here, the 2620 that we've mentioned. We've talked about this one for a while. The last two hits have been a kind of a quick in and a quick turnaround back out again. And we saw some buyers step in. So we're kind of right in that same proximity. So we could have a potential roll, especially if the oil number is a little funky today.
Yep. Excellent. All right. Well, it's definitely something to be potentially looking at. With that, any questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. By the way, there's this trust pilot up there. If any of you feel compelled, I should just drop that. I'll copy it. Maybe tomorrow I'll copy it and drop it in there. It would be great if you left us a review. We'd appreciate it. Any questions for Brian? support@keeptradingsimple.com. He is also very accessible. With that, the quick little recap. Netflix down. So keep an eye on the NASDAQ index. Oil inventory reports 10:30 this morning, and gold is moving around a little bit with talks of inflation. With that, want to wish you all good luck in the markets. We will catch you again tomorrow morning. Thanks, everyone.